Okay, let's get started. And we'll open with a prayer. We hear this prayer over announcements quite often. It seems like for the last couple of years, it's been the ASB's go-to prayer after the Lord's Prayer and Hail Mary. And I think it really does give us a game plan for our life. You know, we're always going to feel every one of these throughout our life, and you'll want people to help you, and that is what's great about having friends that can really help you in your time of need. But we also need to be that person that gives. And here we are at the season of Christmas, and I know the saying is sometimes you feel better giving a gift than receiving one. You get more from giving than receiving, and it's counterintuitive, but I think it does really speak a lot. So let's say this together. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, where there is doubt, where there is despair, where there is darkness, where there is sadness. O divine Lord, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to be understood as to be loved as to. For it is in giving that we were, it is in pardoning that we are, and it is in dying that we are.
Eternal life.
Amen. And I can remember I picked this for a wedding reading too. This is got a lot of gospel in it. I can remember my father saying these words, and so it's in a recording. His face is off the screen, but I do have the recording of him saying it. And then when he passed away, I put this on his little memory card. So these are words that he spoke to me about. So good words to live by. And now let's get to our final class of the year, and we are on our review class for the final exam. So we are going to talk about the final, give you a game plan for it, and then it is going to be a day for you to make sure that everything is tied up nice and tight like your shoelaces. Don't leave anything left undone. If you have any missing work, make a point to turn it in. You earn 50% credit if it's over 5 days late, because it's a 10% penalty per day. And if you found yourself in that position this year where you just didn't turn in everything on time, it really is evident that it erodes your grade. So the cool thing is, after the end of this grid right here, you play Etch-a-Sketch. Ever do that old game where you've got these two wheels and you move them and you create this drawing, and then you can just lift it up and shake it? It erases everything. So you can erase your first semester grades. They all stay in the first semester, and you start with an A+. So at the beginning of the second semester, everyone has an A+. Turn in all your work on time, do the best quality work you can do, and you will ride that A+. There are some students in my biology classes that will finish the first semester with over 100%. Because there's been a lot of extra credit. There's been a lot of easy quizzes. And so they have, super strong A's. Then there are others who found themselves on the other end of that pendulum where they're struggling to pass a class. And the difference between a D and an A usually is follow through and just doing the best you can, using office hour correctly, and getting your work done quickly if you do miss something by mistake. But you don't want to make a habit of that. Just 5 minutes ago, before you walked in the door, I had a prior student who graduated last year. He came in to say hi. He's on campus to say hi to his teachers. And he thanked me for the recommendation to go to a certain college. I think he was a C student. I'd have to look it up. But now he's in a pre-med program. He took his first semester of college online because of COVID. His parents didn't want him to, but now he's moving on campus, and he's really looking forward to it. He came in and said, thanks, because he was in my forensics class, and I bring in some guest speakers, and he was motivated to kind of change things around for himself, and he's really excited about his future. So it doesn't matter if you don't have an A, if you have a B or a C, and sometimes even D's are just life learning lessons. But keep striving to improve, and so you have room for improvement on your grade. Unless you've got that 99%, there's room for improvement. So how prepared are you for the final? I'm going to open up the final review sheet and just quickly go scan it. We're not going to go over every question. I will give you an answer key on Monday, and it's meant for you to just kind of check if you have questions about a particular topic. But the best study guide that you can have is to make your own study guide. When you rely on another teacher's or a worksheet, then you get so busy just filling it in that it doesn't make that much sense. But if you were to go through it systematically on your own and then practice it, that's where you get the biggest payout. So as freshmen, you're trying to learn how to best approach your academics. It's not the same for everyone. I know that some students have had a hard time occasionally, maybe with the approach or the learning styles. So we'll continue to mix it up because the topics and the approach is going to speak to you better than others. And so you kind of have to find out what works best for you. And then you can design your own study guides. But we'll go over what we have here for a study guide. I've got another tool for you I'm going to share with you. And then look at the next day of our class. Our last official class is Monday, but you don't have to be here. So it's called the Flex Day. Teachers have office hours from 9 o'clock until 12:30. So if you do need to come in, you can. If you want to talk over email or Zoom, I'll be available too on Monday. And so that's your last chance to really get help to solidify your grade going into the final. So there's your final schedule. And for you guys, being block 5, this is going to be on Wednesday of next week. So you've got a little bit of time. Have you prioritized your finals so that you are going to put the most effort into the ones with the biggest payout? That means that if you're a borderline grade, 3 percentage points from the transition from one grade to another. So if you have an 82%, you're a borderline. If you have a 78%, you're a borderline. Anywhere 3 percentage points from that cutoff. So you'd have to do well to keep a grade if you're above that line. If you're below the line, do good job on the final, and you will go up to the next higher grade letter. So get to some questions first, yeah?
What's the passing grade for this class?
You got to get a C for a passing grade.
So like, if someone was to get a D, would they have to retake biology?
Below a what?
Would they have to retake biology if they got a D?
Yes. You know what? I want to say yes, but I think you can have a D. You have to make up Fs, and you can make up Ds in summer school, but I don't know if you have to. Check with your counselor on that. It's a good idea to make up those low grades because your overall GPA will be greatly affected by such a low grade. So any other questions just generally about our schedule? So the study guide was due last night for you guys. I received most of them. And turn them in if you haven't yet. It's 10% late per day. And so I'll be giving you the answer key 5 days afterwards, so you're not going to earn too many points on the assignment if you do it after the weekend. Extra credit is due the 13th, so if you haven't done the extra credit, if it will really help you with being a borderline grade, I recommend that you take care of that over the weekend. And that is it for our assignments. The last thing we did was photosynthesis, and you turned in notes on interactive, and we had our quiz. All of those are graded and put into your Aries grade. So today in class you can kind of see where you're at. Make sure it's accurate. Did you know that those play posits, they're at another website, and it doesn't automatically go from Canvas over to Aries? I have to like hit a button, and I stopped syncing those old assignments. So if you're making up an old assignment, a play posit doesn't pop up on my needs to be graded list. Everything else though, that's an assignment with an attached file, I'll be notified if you turn it in late. But play posits just kind of sit there graded in Canvas, but unless I was to scan 100 students for all these play posits, I wouldn't catch it if you did it late. So you check Aries for accuracy. Let me know if anything doesn't look quite right, and we'll try to get that all squared away. So let's click into the final study guide. Somebody asked me during office hour, what else can I do besides the study guide to prepare for the final? And I was hesitant to really give any other advice because the study guide is so good. It's long, it's 70 questions, because it pulls out a question, topic, or key term. Like question number 4, what's a good example of a prokaryote? And so you'd have to know what a prokaryote is to give an example. And a prokaryote is a basic cell that doesn't have a nucleus, but it has DNA inside the cytoplasm, and it doesn't have any membrane enclosed organelles. It's usually 10 times smaller than a regular cell. And what's an example of it? Yes?
Fungus.
No. Good guess. Bacteria. I like the boldness of the answer, yeah. Is there a question about the kingdoms? So you mentioned a kingdom. That is a whole group of organisms. We have animals. That's a kingdom. We have plants. That's a kingdom. Fungus is a kingdom. And Protista is a kingdom of single-celled organisms. And bacteria is a kingdom. So there's 5 kingdoms, but then they discovered that there's something larger than a kingdom, and those are domains. So there's 3 domains. One domain is called prokaryote. So there it is. Bacteria now have their own domain name. And then there's eukaryotes. Those are what typical animals and plants are. A complex cell with a nucleus, with membrane enclosed organelles like chloroplast and mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, vacuoles. All these have membranes. And so back to the domains, prokaryote, eukaryote, and then the third one is extremophiles, extreme bacterias. And so you'd want to make sure that you could speak through the answers. So don't just write it down. You get an A on homework like this study guide, but then you're not going to do well in the final if you don't practice it. So some people are turning this into a Quizlet, flashcards, print up a blank one, have a study partner. So make sure that you are reviewing it. And so in just a sec, I'll ask if you have any questions about any particular one that you'd like to talk about, either as this group, or we're going to turn the rest of the class into independent time for you to go through this, check your Aries grade, and so on. So you could ask me a particular question if you need help with it. Another question?
Can we work on like other classwork too?
Yep, if you're all done with everything in this class, then you can use this class for studying other academic classes, but no videos and something non-academic. Another question?
Are there going to be pictures on the test?
Nope. For this next one, there's, there might be a couple, but not like the last quiz where it had so many pictures in there. So also at lunch, somebody asked if they could see their results on the quiz, but I still have about 6 people still taking the quiz. So I'll open this up for you to see your test results. I can handle a few at the end of today after school, if you want to do that. And then Monday, I'm available for you to take a look at your prior quiz. If you're on campus, that's great. If not, then we could also do it online, either by email or by Zoom. So if you really would like to see your prior quiz on the photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about right now as a group? Any question that you're stuck on? Yeah?
Is it all going to be multiple choice for the test? Or are there going
Yes,
to
And if you know the answer, though, on the top of your head, instead of just picking it out of a lineup, then you're going to do well on the test. So approach this multiple choice semester exam like it's an essay test, though. And you should do that for all your tests. How about question 30? Could you answer that one right now without looking at the answer you put down on the paper? Because maybe you looked it up, but you don't know what it is. So where is the energy in ATP? Do you know the answer?
Isn't it like from the mitochondria?
No. The mitochondria produce ATP, 32 ATP. Remember that? One glucose molecule can produce 32 ATP. But the question is asking where in the ATP molecule is the energy? And to give you a hint, energy is in every molecule. So where in a molecule is the energy? In the electron? So that's a really good answer. It's in the chemical bonds, and chemical bonds are sharing electrons. So this is like the adenosine. It's a big molecule all by itself. And then this is ADP. D stands for di, so those are 2 phosphates. So the mitochondria is going to take this, and it also works inside of the chloroplast, right? Because chloroplast can make ATP in the light reaction. They're making it so that they could use that energy for the Calvin cycle. So then when they add a 3rd phosphate, it becomes ATP, triphosphates. So the energy in ATP is in the last pair of electrons that are shared. That's the answer for question 30. How does ATP release energy? It breaks that bond holding that 3rd phosphate. And when it breaks a bond, it is releasing the energy in the sharing of electrons. Remember how light can strike chlorophyll and energize electrons and make them go farther out from their nucleus? So the energy is where electrons are, and if you make them leave an atom, energy is released at the same time. Yeah?
What is that bond called?
Covalent bond. It's a sharing of electrons. So I mentioned that it's like energy is in every molecule. You break apart any covalent bond and you're going to release energy. But question 30, ATP is the energy molecule. It's like the currency. They call it the energy currency. When a cell needs to do something, it uses that molecule right there. How does cellular respiration break down to produce ATP? Where is the energy coming from to make it go from ADP to ATP? This is question 31. What does cellular respiration break in order to grab the electrons to make another bond with that third phosphate? What's the fuel source that goes into your mitochondria? And it will systematically pull this apart, grabbing the electrons out of it, and it puts it into an electron carrier and sends it off to the end process where it makes all this ATP. What's the fuel source that you just ate at lunchtime? Is it a carbohydrate? Is it a fat? Or is it a protein that goes into the mitochondria? Yeah? Carbohydrate. Glucose. C6H12O6. Could you mention the reactants in the cellular respiration equation? You ate, so glucose is a reactant. You're breathing in oxygen, so that's a reactant. So it's those two things. What comes out? ATP, carbon dioxide that we're exhaling, and water. Why do we breathe in oxygen? Our mitochondria need it. They're going to accept the electrons that flow down the electron transport chain. The electrons need a place to go. Final resting place. They combine with hydrogen, oxygen to form water. "33. What does aerobic mean? A lot of times it means exercise, right? Aerobics? You heard of that? I'm going to aerobics class. What does aerobic mean? Does it mean oxygen or does it mean carbon dioxide? Oxygen. So cellular respiration needs oxygen. Why? Question 33. Did you write an answer down and not really know why? Oxygen is the final electron acceptor. When electrons are pulled out of glucose, the final place they go is combining with oxygen. That's why we breathe oxygen. So oxygen, electrons, and hydrogen that's floating around all inside of the matrix, they all combine to form water. So your best study guide is right here. I could give you Kahoots, but you know what? Then people just spend time going over Kahoot, and many of the questions that are in a Kahoot aren't on the exam, and so you're not really studying the right thing. Kahoots are great because it's like, oh, I don't know anything about that. What's he talking about? And then you realize, oh, I better get back to the root of my studying, which is the textbook. And these questions right here are the key concept or the key term. So that's the most important thing. I don't want to busy up your studying agenda. It's this study guide right here. If you want something extra, look at the chapters that it's covering. 34 and 37 from August and September. Then we did it in this order: exploring life, the scientific method. Then we went into the parts of an atom. Then we went into types of bonds: covalent bond, ionic bond, and hydrogen bonding. Then chapter 4, a tour of the cell and their organelles. The working cell was about the cell membrane, how active and passive transport work with those protein channels. And then we went over chapter 6, which is on ATP and cellular respiration, and then photosynthesis, chapter 7. So if you feel like you really know those questions, those 70 questions, then you could go into these chapters and do the flashcards. You could take a look at a few of the practice questions that are there. And you've had the study guide for over a month. So we are now at the point where you are going to start cramming. So be careful, because cramming can have a reverse effect. It can make you all nervous, like, oh my gosh, stress you out. Now you stay up late. Now you're eating junk food, and you're physically not going to be like an athlete ready for your game. So stay up on your sleep, eat well balanced meals, and work the game plan, which is down below. So it's best if you form a study group. If you have the chance to have another student, great. If somebody in your family can have your answer key and they ask you a question, see if you can verbalize it. It's not a good idea for you just to scan your answer key. So when I give the answer key next Monday, some students are going to feel like, great, I got the answers, I'm just going to scan it. No, you have to drill and practice it. So with a study partner, you'll do that naturally. But if you're your own study partner, print up a blank sheet right here, and then you're going to have to hit record on your iPad and talk your way through it, or write out the answers without looking. So drill and practice. And I'll give you one more tool here. Over at the module, there is a study guide module, semester study guide, and I did make available to you a Quizlet. This Quizlet is flashcards, and there are 96 of them. So the words are here. You click on the card to flip it over. So I recommend that you run through the vocabulary. If you go into a test and you don't know the vocabulary, all the questions and the answer choices have vocabulary in them. So you will not perform well if you don't know vocabulary. So I really encourage you to realize that your study guide is built around vocabulary and key terms and concepts. So recognize that when you do the Quizlet, it will feel like it's the study guide, because there's no two ways around it. Just know what they are and the concepts, and be able to verbalize it. And if you're fuzzy on something, run it by me, or you know what chapter it's in, open up the textbook. You'll find a picture. Locate the picture, and the words around the picture explain the picture, and there's captions inside the picture and stuff. So did you find the last quiz a little bit more focused, where I had the pictures and then I was asking you questions about it, just like our study guide? So that is how this class is approached. When we come into the second semester, we're going to be dealing with the ribosomes and how they make proteins, and so it's a step-by-step thing with a lot of pictures. Then we move into genetics with Punnett square. Some of you guys have done some of that work before. And then we get into evolution, and the class changes quite a bit. It gets more conceptual instead of biochemical. And so some of you will take to that, and it's just another topic for us. So at this point, I'm done going over directions, and I'll let you have the rest of the class to work on stuff. Have a conversation with me if you need help with anything, and we'll go from there. So I won't see you until the final. So be in touch with me even after this class if you need some assistance. All right. You got this.